Welcome back to the channel, where we break down the biggest moves, signals, and hidden narratives shaping the future of XRP. And right now, something serious is unfolding that you cannot afford to ignore. Because when a major CEO steps forward and drops a statement like, XRP is about to do it, that's not just noise. That's a signal. And today we're diving deep into what this could really mean, why it's happening now, and how it could impact the entire crypto market moving forward. Let's start with the obvious question. What does do it actually mean in this context? Because in crypto, especially with XRP, words like this are rarely random. They often point towards something bigger building behind the scenes. We're talking about institutional shifts, regulatory clarity, massive liquidity events, or even the beginning of a long-anticipated breakout that many investors have been waiting years for. Now, when someone in a leadership position, especially a CEO tied to large-scale financial or healthcare infrastructure like Evernorth, mentions XRP in this kind of tone, it forces us to pay attention. This isn't a retail investor hyping a coin on social media. This is someone operating in a world where billions move daily, where partnerships matter, and where technology adoption isn't speculation, it's strategy. And here's where things get even more interesting. XRP has always been positioned differently compared to other cryptocurrencies. While most projects focus on decentralization narratives or retail adoption, XRP has consistently targeted one thing: global financial infrastructure. Cross-border payments, banking integration, liquidity solutions. This is the game XRP has been playing from day one. And if a CEO is hinting that XRP is about to do it, it could suggest that something behind the curtain is finally aligning. Think about the timing. Over the past few years, XRP has faced intense regulatory pressure, particularly in the United States. That uncertainty held the price back, limited exchange listings, and slowed down adoption in key markets. But as clarity begins to emerge, something shifts. Institutions that were once on the sidelines suddenly start looking again, quietly and strategically. And when they don't move small. This is where smart money behavior becomes critical to understand. Retail investors often chase hype, but institutions build positions during silence. They accumulate when sentiment is low, when doubt is high, and when the majority has already moved on. So when a statement like this surfaces publicly, it raises a powerful question. Are we entering the phase where accumulation turns into expansion? Because historically, every major XRP move has followed a pattern. Long periods of consolidation followed by explosive, almost violent upward movements that catch the majority off guard. In 2017, XRP didn't slowly climb. It erupted, and many believe that if history rhymes even slightly, the next move could be even more aggressive due to increased institutional involvement and global awareness. But here's the key detail most people miss. Moves like that don't start when everyone is watching. They start quietly, with signals, subtle confirmations, and shifting sentiment among those closest to the action. And then suddenly, it's too late to position early. So when we hear XRP is about to do it, we shouldn't just think about price. We should think about adoption, integration, and transformation. Could this be tied to new partnerships, financial institutions preparing to integrate XRP-based solutions, or regulatory clarity arriving sooner than expected? All of these possibilities are on the table, and if even one of them turns out to be true, we're not just looking at a short-term move, we're looking at a structural shift in how XRP is positioned globally. Now here's where things start to get even more serious, because once you move beyond the surface-level hype of a statement like XRP is about to do it, you begin to see a deeper layer forming, one that most retail investors completely overlook. The real question isn't just what was said, but why it was said now, and more importantly, what could already be happening behind the scenes. Because in markets like crypto, timing is everything, and when influential voices begin to echo similar sentiments around the same asset, it often signals that something is already in motion. This is where insider positioning and institutional behavior come into play, and if you understand this phase correctly, you start to realize that the biggest moves don't begin with price, they begin with preparation. Institutions don't wait for confirmation the way retail investors do. They don't need headlines or social media validation. They move based on data, access, and long-term strategy. And when they start positioning, it happens quietly, often during periods of uncertainty or low excitement, when the majority of the market is distracted or discouraged. That's exactly the kind of environment XRP has been in for a while now. Sideways movement, mixed sentiment, and constant debates about its future. But historically, this is the exact type of setup that precedes a major breakout. What makes this moment even more interesting is the shift in narrative we're beginning to see. For years, XRP has been surrounded by controversy, largely due to regulatory battles and uncertainty around its classification. That narrative created fear, hesitation, and in many cases, complete avoidance from large investors who didn't want to take on unnecessary risk. But as clarity slowly starts to emerge, that same fear begins to transform into opportunity. And this is where the smart money flips its strategy. What was once seen as risky now becomes undervalued. What was once avoided now becomes attractive, and what was once quiet suddenly becomes a focal point for accumulation. So when a CEO-level figure hints that XRP is about to do it, it may not be a prediction. It may be an observation of something already unfolding behind closed doors. Another critical layer to understand is liquidity. XRP's core use case revolves around moving value quickly and efficiently across borders, acting as a bridge between different currencies and financial systems. But for that vision to fully activate, there needs to be a certain level of infrastructure, adoption, and yes, liquidity in the market. And liquidity doesn't just appear overnight. It builds over time, often silently, as institutions prepare for larger-scale operations. This is why some analysts believe that what we're seeing right now is not the beginning of XRP's move, but the late stages of its preparation phase. The groundwork may already be laid, partnerships may already be forming, and systems may already be integrating XRP in ways the public hasn't fully recognized yet. And then there's the psychological aspect of the market, which is just as important as the fundamentals. Retail investors tend to react emotionally. They buy when prices are high and excitement is everywhere, and they sell when prices are low and fear dominates the narrative. Institutions, on the other hand, do the opposite. They build positions during fear, they accumulate during doubt, and they wait patiently for the right moment to let the market catch up to what they already know. So if XRP truly is about to do it, the question becomes, how much of that move has already been prepared for, and how much of it is still invisible to the average investor? Because once momentum starts, it doesn't wait for late entries, it accelerates. And in assets like XRP, that acceleration can be extremely fast. We've seen it before. Sudden spikes, rapid price discovery, and a rush of attention that brings in waves of new investors who feel like they're chasing something that's already in motion. That's why moments like this are so critical. Not because they guarantee anything, but because they highlight a potential shift in the underlying dynamics of the market. A shift from uncertainty to clarity, from silence to attention, and from accumulation to expansion. So as we move forward, it's not just about watching the charts. It's about understanding the behavior behind them. It's about recognizing the signs that often appear before major moves and asking the right questions at the right time. And right now, all signs point to one thing. Something is building around XRP. And whether it's a breakout, a major adoption wave, or a structural shift in the financial system, the pieces are starting to come together. Now, as we move deeper into this unfolding narrative, we need to shift our focus toward the catalysts, the actual triggers that could take XRP from this quiet build-up phase into a full-scale explosive move. Because while signals and statements like XRP is about to do it create attention, they don't cause the move by themselves. What truly drives momentum are the underlying events that change perception, unlock capital, and force the market to reprice the asset in real time. And right now, several powerful catalysts are aligning in a way that we haven't seen in years. First, we need to talk about regulatory clarity, because this has been one of the biggest weight factors holding XRP back. For a long time, uncertainty around legal classification created hesitation across exchanges, institutions, and even retail investors. But as that fog begins to lift, something very important happens. The risk profile changes. Suddenly, what was once seen as a dangerous or uncertain asset starts to look viable again. And when that shift happens, capital that was previously sitting on the sidelines begins to flow back in. Not slowly, but aggressively. Because institutions don't like being late, especially when they've already been watching from a distance. Now combine that with the possibility of renewed exchange listings and expanded accessibility. When XRP becomes easier to buy, trade, and integrate globally, it removes friction from the system. More participants enter the market, liquidity increases, and price discovery accelerates. This is how markets transition from stagnation into expansion phases. It's not just about hype, it's about access. And if access expands at the same time as confidence returns, you create the perfect environment for a major move. But that's only one piece of the puzzle. Another major catalyst lies in institutional adoption and partnerships. XRP was never designed to be just another speculative asset. It was built with a clear use case in mind, facilitating fast, low-cost cross-border transactions. And if large financial entities begin integrating XRP-based solutions into their systems, the implications go far beyond price. We're talking about real-world usage at scale. We're talking about XRP becoming part of the infrastructure that moves money across the globe. And once that kind of adoption reaches a certain threshold, it changes everything. Because at that point, XRP is no longer just being traded, it's being used. Then there's the macro environment, which plays a bigger role than most people realize. Global financial systems are under pressure to become more efficient, more transparent, and more interconnected. Traditional methods of moving money across borders are slow, expensive, and outdated. This creates a massive opportunity for solutions like XRP to step in and offer something better. And if the timing aligns, if the need for innovation meets a ready-to-deploy solution, you get a rapid acceleration in adoption. Not gradual, but sudden. We also can't ignore the role of market psychology during this phase. Once a few key catalysts hit, sentiment can flip almost instantly. Doubt turns into curiosity, curiosity turns into excitement, and excitement turns into FOMO. And when that cycle begins, it feeds on itself. More attention brings more buyers drive price higher, and higher prices attract even more attention. This is how exponential moves are formed, not through a single event, but through a chain reaction of triggers that build on top of each other. And this is exactly why the phrase "about to do it" carries so much weight, because it suggests that we're not at the beginning anymore. We're at the edge. The groundwork has been laid, the pressure has been building, and now all it takes is one or two key catalysts to ignite the entire move. It's like a coiled spring that's been compressed for years, waiting for the right moment to release. But here's the critical part. Most people won't recognize it when it happens. They'll wait for confirmation, for headlines, for price to already be moving. And by the time they react, a significant portion of the move could already be gone. That's how these markets work. They reward those who understand the buildup, not just the breakout. So as we look ahead, the focus shouldn't just be on whether XRP will move, but on what will trigger it and how close we are to that moment right now. Because if even a few of these catalysts align at the same time, we could be looking at one of the most significant phases in XRP's history. Now, this is where everything starts to accelerate, because once those catalysts we talked about begin to activate, the market doesn't move slowly, it reacts with intensity. And if XRP truly is on the edge of doing it, then what we're about to witness could unfold much faster than most people expect. This is the phase where preparation turns into action, where quiet accumulation transforms into aggressive expansion, and where price begins to reflect what's been building behind the scenes for so long. Historically, XRP has shown a very specific behavior during these moments. It doesn't grind upward in a predictable way. Instead, it compresses for long periods and then releases that pressure in sudden, explosive moves that catch the majority of the market completely off guard. If we look back at previous cycles, XRP didn't give people multiple chances to enter once momentum kicked in. It moved fast, creating sharp spikes that forced late buyers to chase the price higher and higher. And that's exactly how market psychology takes over. At first, there's disbelief. People think it's just another fake move or short-term pump. Then comes curiosity, as the price continues to rise and attention starts building. And finally, there's full-blown FOMO, where the majority rushes in, afraid of missing what could be a life-changing opportunity. By the time that stage hits, the smart money that accumulated early is already in profit, and the dynamics of the market shift completely. Now imagine that same pattern, but in today's environment, where the crypto market is more mature, where institutional players are more involved, and where global awareness of digital assets is significantly higher than it was in 2017. The scale of the move could be very different. We're not just talking about retail-driven hype anymore. We're talking about the potential for large capital inflows, algorithmic trading systems reacting to momentum, and financial entities positioning themselves in real time as XRP begins to prove its relevance on a global stage. This combination can create a powerful feedback loop where price increases attract attention, attention attracts capital, and capital drives the price even higher. Another important factor to consider is liquidity shock. When demand suddenly increases and available supply becomes limited, especially if large holders are not selling, the price can move aggressively in a very short period of time. This is how you get those rapid, almost vertical moves that seem irrational on the surface, but are actually driven by simple supply and demand mechanics. And if XRP enters that kind of environment, the speed of the move could leave many investors stunned. Because markets don't wait for everyone to be ready, they move when conditions are right. At the same time, volatility will increase, and that's something many people underestimate. Fast moves up are often accompanied by sharp pullbacks, sudden corrections, and moments of uncertainty that test investor conviction. This is where emotional discipline becomes critical, because while the upside can be massive, the journey is rarely smooth. The market will shake out weak hands, create doubt, and challenge those who entered without a clear understanding of what they're holding. And this is exactly how wealth transfers from the impatient to the patient. What makes this phase even more intense is the media effect. Once XRP starts gaining momentum, headlines will begin begin to appear everywhere. News outlets, social media platforms, influencers, all talking about the sudden surge. And with that comes a wave of new participants entering the market, many of whom have little understanding of the fundamentals. They're driven by excitement, by fear of missing out, and by the belief that the move will continue indefinitely. This influx of attention amplifies the movement even further, pushing XRP into the spotlight in a way that reinforces the narrative that something major is happening. So when we hear that XRP is about to do it, we have to understand that the move itself isn't just about price. It's about momentum, psychology, liquidity, and timing all colliding at once. It's about a market shifting from quiet buildup into explosive recognition. And if that transition has already started, then the window to position early may be closing faster than most people realize. It's time to bring everything together and take a clear, grounded look at what all of this really means. Because while the idea that XRP is about to do it is exciting, and the signals we've discussed are powerful, the reality is that markets don't move in straight lines, and nothing is ever guaranteed. This is where smart investors separate themselves from emotional participants. It's not just about spotting opportunity, it's about understanding risk, timing, and having a strategy that protects you no matter what direction the market takes next. Because here's the truth, most people don't want to hear. Even in the middle of the strongest setups, the market can still surprise you. Delays can happen, catalysts can take longer than expected, and sentiment can shift without warning. XRP may be building towards something significant, but the timing of that move is never exact. And this is where patience becomes one of the most valuable assets you can have. The investors who tend to win in situations like this are not the ones chasing every price spike. They're the ones who understand the bigger picture and position themselves accordingly without overexposing themselves to unnecessary risk. At the same time, it's important to stay realistic about expectations. Yes, XRP has the potential for major moves, especially if the catalysts we discussed begin to align. Yes, the structure, the history, and the growing interest all suggest that something meaningful could be ahead. But expecting instant results or guaranteed outcomes is where many people go wrong. Markets reward discipline, not desperation. And when excitement builds too quickly, it often leads to poor decisions. Buying at the top, selling in fear during pullbacks, or overcommitting based on hype instead of analysis. Another key factor to keep in mind is personal strategy. Every investor is different. Some are long-term holders who believe in the broader vision of XRP and are willing to wait through volatility. Others are short-term traders looking to capitalize on momentum and price swings. Neither approach is right or wrong, but what matters is that you understand your own plan before the market forces you to make emotional decisions. Because once volatility kicks in, things move fast. And if you don't have a clear approach, it's easy to get caught in the noise. And let's not ignore the importance of staying informed. The crypto space evolves quickly, and new developments can change the landscape almost overnight. Whether it's regulatory updates, institutional announcements, or shifts in global financial trends, staying aware of what's happening around XRP will give you a major advantage. Information is power in markets like this, especially when timing plays such a critical role. So where does that leave us? Right now, XRP appears to be at a very interesting point, one where signals, sentiment, and potential catalysts are beginning to align. The statement that it's about to do it may not be a guarantee, but it reflects a growing belief that something significant could be approaching. Whether that turns into a breakout, a wave of adoption, or a gradual transformation over time remains to be seen. But one thing is clear, the attention is returning, the narrative is shifting, and the market is starting to wake up again. As we move forward, the smartest approach is balance. Stay open to the opportunity, but grounded in reality. Pay attention to the signals, but don't ignore the risks. And most importantly, make decisions based on your own research and strategy, not just headlines or opinions. And before we wrap up, a quick financial disclaimer. This content is for informational and educational purposes only and should not be considered financial advice. Cryptocurrency investments carry significant risk, and you should always do your own research and consult with a qualified financial advisor before making any investment decisions. Never invest more than you can afford to lose, and always approach the market with a clear plan and disciplined mindset.